Well, hello there, Eden Gold, and welcome to the show. Do you ever wonder why fun and adulting never make it into the same sentence? Well, here on this podcast, we're going to change that for you. My goal for you in listening to this podcast is not just to help you adult, but to help you adult successfully and actually give you the foundations that you need to thrive personally, professionally, and financially earlier in life. So, while my goal is to give you a how to playbook on multiple different topics under the umbrella term of adulting, we're also going to be getting deep, okay? We're not holding back at all. I'm going to share with you my life experiences, things that I've gone through, what's helped me along the way, and also give you free downloads and guides to help you on your journey to figuring out whatever it is that you are going through in your current adulting struggle. So, this is more or less a little introductory video so you can get to know me, why I created this podcast to begin with, where we're headed, some little sneak peeks and some teasers, and all of the fun stuff. Okay, so let's get into it. I got my Rad Dad coffee mug right here. Yes, I'm drinking my coffee with a straw because, well, I want my teeth to be whiter, but I'm not going to stop drinking coffee. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Eden Gold. I'm a 25-year-old entrepreneur, youth motivational speaker, and founder of Life After High School LLC. It's an online program dedicated to helping young adults navigate their 20s and, as I said, set those foundations for personal, professional, and financial success in adulthood. I also live in this RV. So I just hopped on the whole van life bandwagon. I've been wanting to do it for a couple of years now, and I came up on this beauty. Her name is Pinecone. So the majority, if not all of the podcast episodes are going to be filmed in here. So I anticipate that the first couple of episodes, I'm going to be making a lot of mistakes and having to cut a lot and being like, why did I say it like that? Like I already catch myself doing it, even though I've only been filming for about 2 minutes. So if you see any cuts in the filming or the audio kind of skips a little bit, that's why. I'm doing my best trying to figure it out and figure out the flow. But I'm really excited to be here. So when I was trying to think about where to start and how to introduce the podcast, I figured I would start by sharing a little bit more in depth stuff about me. So let's get right into it. Let me share with you some life changing events that I've gone through in my life. Some of you might call it trauma. And you know, what better way to bond than start with a good old fashioned trauma bond? So I was born in Hawaii. I was born into a military family, and my dad was stationed on Oahu. So I was born in Tripler Medical Center. It's the big pink one. And when my parents split up when I was young, we moved to California with my mom, me, my sister, and my brother. And my dad stayed in Georgia. So we would visit him every single year. This lasted until I was 10 years old. One thing that I kind of want to put a bookmark right there for a second and say that one thing that I want to preface that will come time and time again over the course of this podcast is I believe that we are all a lot more alike than we are different. We don't always uncover those similarities because there's a lot that we don't know how to say, we're afraid to say, and so many messages that instill this fear in us, especially as we're growing up, that don't allow us to connect on a deeper level. But that's not going to be the case here. And my aim is to relate to you with some of the struggles that I've been through in my life and create that community where you guys can relate to one another and find friendships amongst the community because truly we are a lot more alike than we are different, and we shouldn't go through this life feeling like we're alone in everything that we do. And I say that to say this. Over the course of my career in building my speaking business, speaking to high schoolers and middle schoolers and college students, I've had people say things to me like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you were going to talk about computers and this, that, or the other." And now I preface a lot of my speaking engagements by saying things like, I know that some of you are looking at me and thinking, what could this girl teach me about my life? She's nothing like me. She looks nothing like me. And we all have these preconceived notions of people or judgments and think that we know about people based on just looking at them or hearing the way they talk or whatever. We all judge people, right? But if we're self aware of that, we have the choice to be open to being optimistic to what an individual has to say. What can we learn from this individual? We are a lot more alike than we are different. So, in stating that, if you're open to learning more about me, and I'm totally open to learning more about you. I cannot wait to connect with you and read your messages and hope that you feel comfortable in opening up to me to create that relatability. So, as I said, I would travel from California to Georgia every single year to see my dad. And this lasted until I was 10 years old. And when I was 10 years old, my father went to prison. My father went to prison on a life sentence without parole. All right, my friend, we just did a quick break check because my mic died. So I had to go and plug it in. And now we're going to proceed. I hope the audio sounds okay in both parts when I piece it together. If not, you just got to bear with me. I'm still trying to figure out this podcast life. Okay. So let me continue with the story. When I was 10 years old, my father went to prison on a life sentence without parole. What I didn't realize at the time was that I was looking for ways to blame myself for why he left. I was looking for the things that were wrong with me, and all of these encompassing negative feelings ultimately led me down a path of developing an eating disorder by the time I was 15. I was quickly convinced by both myself and my environment that I wasn't good enough just being me. I was also in a friend group that convinced me that I wasn't good enough just being me. And I'm not saying they did it intentionally. In fact, of course they didn't. But the way that I felt being surrounded by the people I was surrounded with was toxic energy for the majority of my high school experience. So as soon as I graduated, I stopped hanging out with all of them. And of course, I wished them well, but I was so unhappy with myself. And the most important thing for me was to heal myself. There were other things that contributed to my negative body image. While many young women and men and non binary individuals struggle with body image to the freaking nth degree, I also experienced sexual assault, which we'll maybe talk about another time, but not right now. And just not feeling good enough. I could have sworn to you I was the most insecure girl in the world. And, the one thing that I had that took me out of what I was experiencing was volleyball. Volleyball was my saving grace. The only thing that kept me afloat in reality, because nobody knew what I was going through. I barely knew what I was going through. I didn't have the words to describe what I was feeling. And this happens a lot, if not nearly every time when we're young adults and we're struggling with something because of our lack of education in mental health, psychology, brain development, things of that nature. We'll be struggling, but we don't have a word to put with what we're going through. So we just think we're messed up, right? We just know we're not happy and we hate our life and we feel like our life isn't worth living. 58% of 18 through 24-year-olds feel like their life isn't worth living, like they have no purpose in life. 58%. That is astonishing to me. And as long as I have anything to do with it, with this podcast or anything I put out into the world, my speaking engagements, I promise you that number is going to decrease. That is my lifeblood in ensuring that that number decreases and we create a much needed revolution in the education system that we need. So, moral of the story, I didn't know that there was a word to describe my eating disorder. I knew that I was scared of food and I was so embarrassed by it. Like, what? Who's scared of food? But I didn't have a word to put to it. So I just thought I was messed up. And it wasn't until well after I graduated that I was like, oh, it's called bulimia. Oh, here's what's going on. And when I hit a variation of my rock bottom, I graduated high school in 2016. In 2017, my house burned down in the Tubbs wildfire on October 9th. We lost everything and things were at an all-time high in terms of severity of what I was going through. And I just didn't care. I was like, screw it, don't care. And shortly after that, we can get into the nitty-gritty maybe another time, I discovered the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. It's a health coaching year-long program. And I was like, oh, I have to do this. I didn't want to be a health coach. I wanted to heal my relationship with food. I had tried every diet under the sun at this point. I know I'm kind of skipping some years. So I journaled every single day. This was in 2018. I remember when I learned the concept of giving yourself full permission to eat. I was like, what? I can't do that because then I'll eat everything. But I journaled the exact day, August 18th, 2018, when I walked my happy butt to the store, and I was like, today's the day. Today's the day I'm going to give myself full permission to eat whatever I want. I'm so excited. Yay, allowing myself to eat food, because naturally, when we're not allowed to do something, we have an internal desire to, what's the word I'm looking for? Repel that. You guys probably know the word I'm looking for. Go against that. And so the more I restricted myself, the more I had these binges and purges, these urges to go crazy. The animalistic side of my brain taking over. Eating disorders are a psychological disorder, right? It's almost like an out of body experience when you go on a binge bender. So I walked my happy butt into the store and I went to my favorite aisle, the chip aisle. And I remember looking at all of the chips like, oh my gosh, I can eat whatever I want. And I didn't want anything. I was so shocked. Okay, this might not be mind blowing for you listening, or maybe it could be. But I was like, for once, I'm not buying so much food and consuming all of it at once, because I had surrendered to the process and allowed myself to fully embrace that I'm allowed to eat whatever I want, do whatever I want, be whoever I want, and it's all okay. Whatever emotion I feel, emotions come in waves. We are never upset 100% of the time, nor are we happy 100% of the time. Emotions are fluid, and so are we, and that's okay. So that was a huge pivotal moment for me in my healing journey. And my recovery from that led me into really diving deep into human psychology, personal development. That's when I started hiring mentors. And as I started learning all of this, I started getting angry, because I was like, why weren't we taught this in school? And things started to make sense. I saw things in my friends, people who I was surrounded by, and I was like, they need to know what I know. So I started getting really frustrated at the education system, that the things that I was so profoundly learning weren't taught in our curriculum. And that's where the foundation of my business blossomed. And making sure that as long as I had anything to do with it, no other young adult would have to go through what I went through. And that's my life's mission to this day. Now it's evolved a little bit because people want to know, how do I move out? How do I grocery shop without raging social anxiety? How do I get my first credit card? Things of that nature. How do I have a happy, healthy sex life? Like whatever it is. But it all comes back to these foundations and messages that we're taught when we're kids and all throughout our life. So in unraveling that, we start with, what is your goal? What is the life you want to create for yourself? And how do we unravel that? I delve deep into the psychology of human development and how we get from point A to point B. I've studied multiple millionaire mentors that I've hired and have worked with for many, many years to learn some of those practices that millionaires use every single day for optimal productivity and positive mental health. Because while your goal may not be to make $1 million, the point is that it takes a certain level of dedication to a goal, ability to troubleshoot, and in the face of failing, prevailing to achieve such a prestigious goal. Does that make sense? So life after high school evolved into this educational resource to help young adults not only transition in the physical and how do you do taxes and whatnot, but how do you get to where you want to go to have an empowered future that you are proud of earlier in life? How do we create success on your terms in your 20s, so we're not falling into the same rat race that our parents are in? Some of us, right? I'm generalizing here. Our parents are in, our grandparents are in. How do we break generational curses and create a foundation that we can go on to leave a generational legacy for our future kids or whoever, right? To think long term and to take action quickly, adjust quickly, and start to achieve our dreams earlier. Mindset, personal development, getting from point A to B, positive mental health, reinforcing our good behaviors, breaking down our bad habits. How do we do that? We are not taught that. Knowing if college is really right for you or not comparing yourself if you don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life to somebody who's going to college. There was a statistic that showed 64% of people who went to college said that the best thing that they got from going to college was the friendships that they made. The friendships. Not that they heavily advanced their career or got a super high paying job. A lot of people who have a college degree it's not a guarantee that you're going to get hired. And this is not to deter you from going to college, because with the right mindset and with the things that you will learn following this podcast and in this community, it doesn't matter what path you take, you can be highly successful. But people are so quick to give up. And some people, they go to college to realize, I don't want to do this. And now I'm hundreds of $1,000s in debt. So together, we might not know what that outcome is that we want in our life, or maybe you do, whatever. We can still start to reach some of those personal, professional, and financial goals now. So we are set up for success, even if the end game changes. We are ever evolving. It's going to change. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a beautiful thing. So those are some of the few topics that we're going to uncover on this podcast. I'm going to get deep with you and share with you more about my life story and answer any questions that you have. I want to have that relationship with you. I'm excited to build a community of young adults in a way that we realize that we are a lot more alike than we are different. You and your peers are so much more alike than you are different. The problem is we think talking about mental health is taboo and scary, and we don't go there, or if I bring it up, I'm going to be the damaged one and be seen as damaged, and because no one else is talking about it, now I'm the weird one, and going to therapy is weird, and all that stuff. We should be high-fiving and congratulating our friends who go to therapy. That's a huge step, particularly in a world where people look down on you and see you as crazy or damaged for taking a step like that. No. We are demystifying mental health stigmas and changing the name of education as a whole, and it's going to start on this podcast. I don't want to give you fluff. I want to give you practical strategies that you can use to change your life, and the earlier you start, the better. I want to get to know each and every one of you individually. Please email me with any of your questions or DM me on Instagram. All of my information is going to be in the show notes, email, everything. I am here for you, to serve you and make sure that you are heard and that you hear me speak your name on this podcast so you know that you are not alone. Let me tell you what really encouraged me to start this. There's a podcast that I've been listening to a bunch, and now that I'm living in an RV, I have been face to face with some feelings of loneliness that I have to sit with. It's the middle of winter here in Oregon, and I've just been pulling up YouTube and watching the video podcast, right? Because it feels conversational. It feels like I'm having a conversation with friends, even though I'm not talking, but it's casual, it's smart, it's intellectual, it's spiritual, it's fun, it's engaging. So while I'm cooking inside Pinecone and getting ready for bed and whatever, I just play the podcast and I feel so much less alone. And I was like, I can be this friend sitting right next to you on the couch, drinking some hot chocolate and watching a Christmas movie. I can be that friend that's with you as you're cooking dinner alone in your first apartment, navigating things, answering some questions that you have, doing a live stream with you. I can be here when you're on your way to a new job. Maybe you have an interview. That's what I want to be here for you as a friend, as a mentor, as a big sister. And that's another reason why it's so important for me to speak to the younger audience, because I've always wanted to feel like that older sister that people saw as a role model. I never had that. I always felt like the underdog. Like my whole life, I had to do twice as much work to get half as far, and still feel like that to this day. Feeling like a failure is probably my number one character defect. But I don't want to put that label on it, right? Because the behaviors that we have that aren't serving us and the habits we have that aren't serving us, we don't need to put a label on it. We can just give it a name and be like, oh, there's Tiffany acting coming up again to make herself be known. If your name is Tiff, love you. But just to give you an example, right? So I've always wanted to feel like I am giving back and being a role model to others. And I feel also after my recovery from my eating disorder and building my business, it is my duty to share the knowledge that I know. We are the best fit to serve the people that we used to be. And little Eden would have loved big Eden to be there to guide her and tell her that everything's okay. And everything's going to be okay. And we're supposed to have hard times and good times and all the in-betweens. And there are parts of my story, like we're all going through something even right now. You have overcome 100% of your worst days. That's a fact. And that's for a reason. There is a 1 in 4 trillionth chance that you would have been born. So don't try and tell me that that was a mistake, because it's not. I feel like it is our duty to share the knowledge that we've acquired to help another person. Helping other people is the number one or number two way to cure depression. Stepping outside of yourself. If we think about depression, it is a very selfish, internalizing feeling. And don't take selfish the wrong way. But how do we act when we are depressed? We're sad. We're recluse. We don't want to go out. It's I'm feeling this way. I this, I that. So one way to combat that is to step outside of yourself. Serve other people. Find a greater purpose other than yourself. If you're finding it hard to recognize a purpose, find that purpose within. Start by serving others and watch it come back twofold to you. So if you have learned something, and you need to tell people to take it with a grain of salt, right? Because you are ever evolving and you don't have all the answers. But if you've learned something that's helped you, share it with somebody else. I'll share with you one more example and then we'll wrap up this introductory podcast episode. And my Nana, she passed away a few years ago during COVID. She was on like her 5th cancer, breast cancer. She had the colonoscopy bag. When she was diagnosed with one of her final cancer, I had just done my health coaching school a year or two prior. And while I knew that she wouldn't care about anything I had to say about it, I felt it was my duty to at least try to help, because I had all of this profound knowledge on alkalizing food and medicinal mushrooms. And so I spent 2 hours writing out a document. I could probably pull it up right now, of everything I knew about cancer. I emailed it to her, never opened, never looked at, never nothing. And not to say it would have saved her life, but having all of this knowledge that I had, I felt it was my duty to at least share it with her. She could do what she wants, but at least now I can know that she rested with me trying my best to help. And sometimes we push our view and our opinion onto others trying to help, but if they never ask for your help, it's not going to be received. And so it's important to accept what is, focus on you and your growth, and being in the vicinity with somebody who is doing the hard work and they are healing. Others will see that, but you can't change other people. So you need to do your inner work, your healing. You're going to have to do it eventually. You might as well start young so you can fulfill your biggest goals and dreams in this life. What's most important, ultimately, is you. What's ultimately important is me, not being a people pleaser, not doing things because I feel bad. I'm a huge people pleaser. I always feel bad. Like I'm responsible for everyone's, like when people are upset, I'm responsible for distress happening in other people's lives. And I've had to look at myself in the face and be like, I'm not responsible for that. It's not my responsibility. The most important thing is making sure that my mental health is good. My physical health is good, because if I'm not operating at an optimal level, it's not always going to be 100% optimal. It's not what I'm saying. You can't show up for other people. You can't show up for other people in the ways that you need, and they get half-assed you, and you're not delivering in the ways that you want, and then you don't feel fulfilled, they don't feel fulfilled, and you become a shell of a person. You are what's most important. On this podcast, I'm here to support you. I'm here to be your friend, answer your questions. And if I can't answer them, I will find you a solution, or at least point you in the right direction in which you can get that guidance. I'm learning as I go, but I've created a level of success in my life, and I hope to share that with you and all of my young audience out there. I'm a Gen Z. I'm 25. I'm turning 26 this year. But I've built a business. I've recovered from an eating disorder. I've invested over $30,000 into my education with millionaire mentors, and I spend my weekend studying child psychology. I'm a nerd. And I say that in an awesome way because I love it. I barely drink anymore. I just like to take care of myself. And it's an ongoing process. And if I can help support you through changes that you're making and help you feel less alone, I'm all for it. So with that, that'll wrap up this episode. I hope I have impacted you at all. Please let me know in my latest Instagram. I will have an Instagram dedicated to each podcast that comes out. If the audio was okay, if you have any further questions, if you're interested in a free giveaway, or I do have a free giveaway, you're going to see that in the document. Not this one, but future ones. There's going to be a document kind of summarizing everything we went through, and then some cool free fun stuff for you guys too. And I just want to get better at this and be there for you. So with that, there's more to come. Subscribe if you liked what you heard today. I'd love to welcome you to the family. Consider becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. You get some really cool bonuses and access to me and the full video podcast too, so we can be just hanging out, chilling. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.